When I say I work the night shift, I don't just mean late hours. I'm a sex worker, and I operate in actual graveyards. Yes, you heard that right, cemeteries are my office, and it's a niche fetish that pays extremely well. My journey into this unusual line of work started purely by accident, but word of mouth spread quickly, and soon I had a steady stream of clients requesting my services specifically in graveyards. At first, I felt a pang of guilt. Was I dishonoring the dead by turning their final resting places into rendezvous spots? But when the money started pouring in, those moral qualms quickly faded away. Over time, I developed a few regular graveyards where I'd meet clients. These were places where the caretakers were usually paid off to look the other way, giving us privacy for the entire night. Interestingly, despite the bizarre setting, most of my clients were polite and treated me well. They often brought me gifts, in addition to the generous payments. This treatment made me feel almost like royalty, and it became a major reason why I stayed in the profession. You'd be surprised by the kind of men who seek out these services. They're mostly middle-aged, well-groomed, with a penchant for good food and fine wine. However, once we're in the graveyard, their kinks come out. The taboo nature of having sex in a cemetery seems to excite them, pushing them to explore their darker desires. But generally, these encounters are brief. Afterward, they'd either take me to a nice hotel or call a cab to send me home. Despite the weirdness, I started to enjoy these encounters until last week. Last week's experience changed everything. It's the reason I'm telling you this story and why I'm considering leaving this profession for good. It was a Tuesday, and I usually reserve Mondays and Tuesdays as my days off to recover from the busy weekend. So, when the phone rang early that morning, I was a bit irritated. The caller's voice was shaky, as if he was nervous, which wasn't unusual for first-time clients. "Is this Kelsey?" he asked. "Yes. Who's this?" I replied, slightly annoyed by the interruption to my sleep. "Hi, sorry, I'm just nervous. I don't usually do things like this." "Okay, what can I help you with?" I inquired, trying to cut to the chase. "I was hoping to use your, services this evening," he stammered. "I'm sorry, but it's my day off today. I won't be available for another week and a half. We could schedule something for later, though." "No, it has to be tonight," he said, his voice cracking as he started to cry. "Please, I really need this. I'll pay you double your normal rate." That caught my attention. "You know my usual rate, right?" "Yes, and I'll double it if you can do tonight." I hesitated for a moment. The money was tempting. "All right, but you'll need to take me somewhere nice for dinner first, and I'll need the address of the cemetery we're going to." "Of course. Let's meet at 6:30. How about Antonio's?" I'm not a big fan of Italian, I lied, aiming for something even more upscale. "How about Cliffside Inn?" He hesitated, then said he'd call back after checking if he could get a reservation. To my surprise, he called back a few minutes later, confirming the reservation at Cliffside Inn and giving me the address of the cemetery, a private plot behind an old abandoned house. He assured me it was deserted and had no security. I texted a trusted friend, as I always do, telling her about my plans for the evening, where we'd be having dinner, and where we'd be going afterward. She replied with a winky face and a thumbs up. I responded with a grimacing emoji, unsure about this guy's odd vibe, but the promise of double pay was enough to override my concerns. I finished getting ready and was about to call a cab when a sleek, black limo pulled up to the curb. The driver got out and opened the door for me with a courteous smile. "Who are you?" I asked, slightly taken aback. "Mr. Price sent me, ma'am. I'm here to take you to dinner." How did he know where I live? I questioned, feeling a little uneasy. "I don't know, ma'am. I'm just the driver," he replied. I hesitated, but the allure of a fancy dinner and the hefty paycheck convinced me to step into the limo. We arrived at the Cliffside Inn, where a handsome man, presumably Mr. Price, greeted me warmly. "Kelsey, you look lovely," he said, all traces of nervousness gone from his voice. "Thank you, Mr. Price. You look very nice as well," I responded, taken aback by his charm. "Please call me Charles," he insisted, wrapping an arm around my waist as we walked into the restaurant. The Cliffside Inn was as elegant as I remembered, and we were seated at a table with the best view of the ocean. The food was divine, and Charles turned out to be quite an engaging conversationalist. He was the head of a software company, which explained his wealth, and though he'd never been married, he had the air of someone who could easily attract a partner. His interest in me seemed genuine, which made me wonder why he needed to hire someone like me. As the night progressed, I found myself relaxing in his company. However, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease when I remembered how he'd sent the limo to pick me up. When I asked him about it, he admitted to getting my address from a friend who had used my services before. While his explanation seemed plausible, it still didn't sit right with me. The mood shifted after that conversation, but Charles was quick to apologize, offering to make it up to me by taking me to the Grand Reddington Hotel after our visit to the cemetery. I accepted his offer, deciding to put the incident behind me and enjoy the rest of the evening. After dinner, the limo took us to the cemetery behind the old abandoned house. The place was eerie, with ancient headstones and a large, ominous-looking mausoleum in the center. Charles had set up a romantic picnic in front of the mausoleum, complete with a blanket, candles, and a tray of fruits and cheeses. It was surreal, but I found myself enjoying the moment, forgetting the oddness of the situation. We toasted with champagne, and I was about to text my friend as per our usual safety protocol when I suddenly felt dizzy. My vision blurred, and the last thing I saw before everything went black was Charles' cold, sinister smile. When I regained consciousness, I was chained to a stone table inside the mausoleum. Surrounding me were hooded figures, their faces hidden in the shadows. Panic set in as I realized I was in serious danger. Charles stood at the head of the table, holding a ceremonial dagger and chanting in a strange language. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. "Oh, foolish child," Charles replied, stroking my cheek in a mockingly tender gesture. I tried to bite his hand, but he quickly pulled away, his expression darkening. He began to explain his twisted family history, how they had once been wealthy and powerful, thanks to sacrifices made to a dark entity that had blessed them. But when the sacrifices stopped, the family lost everything. Charles claimed he was reviving the old traditions to restore his family's power, and I was to be the latest sacrifice. As he raised the dagger to strike, I remembered my friend. I had texted her before blacking out, and she would have noticed when I didn't respond to her hourly check-ins. She'd be on her way with backup. Desperately, I taunted Charles, hoping to buy some time. "Hey, heads up, my friend is on her way," I said, trying to sound smug despite my terror. Charles faltered, his confidence wavering. "No one knows where you are," he retorted, but there was doubt in his voice. "Are you sure about that?" I shot back. "You think I don't take precautions in this line of work? My friend knows exactly where I am, and she's bringing backup. She's probably called the police too." Charles hesitated, clearly unnerved by the possibility of being caught. After a tense moment, he decided to abort the ritual, instructing his followers to leave before they were discovered. He glared at me one last time before exiting the mausoleum, leaving me chained to the stone table. Thankfully, my friend arrived shortly after they left, bringing her brother and another man with her. They freed me, and we went straight to the police. I told them everything, but when I mentioned the location, they informed me that the property had been abandoned for years, with no record of anyone named Charles Price. The police took my statement seriously but admitted they couldn't do much without more evidence. As I was leaving the station, one of the officers pulled me aside. "Don't worry, Mame," he said, his expression serious. "We'll be keeping an eye on you." I'm now in the process of moving, changing my phone number, and considering a complete change of identity. My friend's brother knows someone who can help with that, but starting over is daunting. I liked my life, at least I did until this happened. I'm not sure what my next steps will be, but I need to decide quickly.